That is so...
K-pop music criticism.
Gretchen, stop trying to make
K-pop music criticism.
happen. It's not going to happen.
K-pop music criticism is never going to happen. And trust, I have been there. In my heart, I'm still there, but deep down I know that expecting K-pop stans to invest into the music more deeply is a losing game, given that the genre was never meant to thrive on that kind of engagement. K-pop exists in a uniquely insular environment. I began engaging more seriously with the genre in 2023, and doing so forced me to reevaluate assumptions I'd carried over from how I consume and think about music elsewhere. The most significant of these realizations concerns the relationship between music and criticism. Outside of K-pop, music and criticism has always been inseparable to me, as with film and film criticism, or literature and literary analysis. Consuming media naturally leads to an opinion. You listen to an album, you form an opinion, you articulate why you feel that way, and then you move on. If 10 people hear the same album, you get 10 different reactions. Not because the work is necessarily intricate, but because each listener brings their own history, taste, and priorities to it. Over time, certain perspectives resonate more than others, and those voices become critics you trust. Their value lies not in objectivity, but in their taste. You return to them not because they are quote-unquote right, but because you understand how they hear. You trust them to tell you whether the new Taylor Swift album is worth checking out, or if you can skip it. But K-pop doesn't have music critics, and I don't think it ever will. To state the obvious, there are creators on YouTube, TikTok, and more that express their opinions on K-pop releases. Hell, I've also done that on my channel. But I wouldn't classify any of us as K-pop music critics, for the simple fact that we do not serve the same function as critics in any other genre do. We do not meaningfully shape discourse or guide listening outside of fan alignment. Critics at their core act as filters. They contextualize the music through their own personal lens. For example, how knowledgeable someone is about music, how tuned in they are to current and past trends, or what they listen to in their free time. All of that bleeds into their reviews, and that is a good thing. That culmination is what makes them such excellent lightning rods for consensus or discussion. There is simply no market for that in K-pop. If it is not fervent praise or downright hate, you might as well shut up. That sounds really dramatic, but it's also embarrassingly true. Nuance does not circulate the way it should in online spaces, and that is doubly true for K-pop. Now, the reasons for this are many and honestly quite redundant, but can all be boiled down in the intrinsic difference between K-pop and every other musical genre. But for the sake of brevity and this video, I will be focusing on pop specifically. One of the most common things I heard when I was first getting into K-pop was a lie. That K-pop is just pop music in Korean. Anyone who dwells in the space or does a little bit of digging will tell you that is absolutely not true. Because despite their similarities, pop and K-pop are different. Albeit I would argue K-pop is just a worse version of pop, and I don't mean quality-wise. Although I imagine some people would argue that, and I don't necessarily disagree. But K-pop is undoubtedly worse when it comes to the commercialization of its products. Capitalism final boss, if you will. The difference ultimately comes down to what they sell. Pop sells music. K-pop sells people. I do feel like this is self-explanatory, but just in case, let's talk about it. Western pop is not devoid of branding personas, eras, or parasocial marketing, albeit in a different flavor than K-pop. These elements are also deeply embedded in the industry. The difference is that they exist in service of the music. The songs produced must survive independently of the artist. It has to function in a variety of settings, in cars, clubs, playlists, on the radio, weddings, basically contexts where the artist's personality is irrelevant. However, for those who are also interested in digging deeper into the persona behind the songs, that also exists to funnel attention towards the music, because the music is the product. K-pop inverts this relationship. In K-pop, the idol is the product and the music is the marketing. The songs in question are not the main event. They are just more often than not the most convenient delivery system for everything else. A comeback cycle, a concept, a storyline, a set of viral moments, and most importantly, a renewed justification to keep paying attention to said idol. This inversion fundamentally reshapes how audiences engage with music and by extension, why traditional criticism cannot take root. When the primary investment is the person rather than the work, critique of the work is inevitably interpreted as critique of the person. Under these conditions, criticism can't really function. It can only exist as loyalty or opposition. This is why criticism of a K-pop release can devolve into attacking the idol and thus defense of the idol in return. If you are watching this rather than just listening in the background doing your chores, I see you. You may have noticed that I am using IVE as the visual backdrop for this video. That choice is deliberate. IVE, and more specifically Jang Wonyoung, is one of the clearest contemporary examples of the phenomenon I've been describing. For all of Wonyoung's strengths, her cultural dominance in K-pop is not because of technical superiority. She is not the strongest vocalist, rapper, or dancer of her generation. This is not meant to be an insult, it's just an observable fact. And yet her reach is unmatched by any within her cohort. If anyone were to suggest that another female idol was more deserving of the it girl status of the fourth generation, I think they'd justifiably get called delusional. But why? If it isn't raw skill, what makes Wonyoung so unavoidable? The answer is her persona, and how effectively it's been marketed. While she was already popular during her time in IZ*ONE, Wonyoung's current level of visibility is the result of two things working in tandem: her natural charisma and Starship's extremely focused promotion of her. These two factors are inseparable. Constant exposure doesn't mean much if the idol can't hold the attention of the public, and charisma only goes so far without access. Wonyoung clearly knows how to present herself, whether that be on stage, in interviews, in photo shoots, or on variety shows. But without an industry machine committed to putting her everywhere, it's hard to imagine her reaching this level of cultural relevance. At the same time, no amount of promotion would work if she couldn't consistently deliver the version of her that people expect and want. Which brings us to IVE's music. Because if Wonyoung's status isn't being built on her being the best performer, the best artist, or any of the songs that come out of her group, then what role does the music actually play here? As I've said, in Wonyoung's case, songs are not where her status is earned. They are where it is maintained. Each release acts as a checkpoint that keeps her visible and active within the industry cycle. The goal is not to produce a generation-defining musical moment every time they come back, but to ensure that there is never a gap long enough for attention to drift elsewhere. This is why no single IVE song needs to be culturally definitive for Wonyoung to remain dominant. The songs honestly don't really have to do anything special. They just have to be competent, cohesive with the group's image, and functional within a comeback framework. As long as the release doesn't disrupt the persona, it has done its job. Truthfully, I don't think IVE has had a song that truly shook up the K-pop industry since Love Dive. And this is not a diss, mind you. Their releases since then are fine. They're okay. If anyone was on their seats waiting to hear my crazy hot take about IVE's music, there you go. They're a pretty solid group with solid music. But that's just exactly my point. Wonyoung's popularity hasn't decreased since then. If anything, she's become more of a K-pop icon. So much so that portraying her attitude and behavior, also known as Wonyoungism, was extremely popular at one point. But it's also why criticism struggles to land when it comes to the music. When music is not the primary value driver, evaluating it on musical terms feels like besides the point. Saying a song is weak is irrelevant because it's not the point. The product is not the music, it's the idol. So then, when you're seen attacking the product, you're attacking the idol. Again, when it comes to Wonyoung and idols like her, the music isn't necessarily irrelevant, but it's wholly replaceable. Any one song can be swapped in without altering her position. What matters is that there is a song on schedule and doing the work of keeping the system moving. So when music is serving the role of providing visibility, it doesn't really matter if the song isn't a 10 out of 10 every single time. As long as it's serviceable and good enough, then it's good enough. Of course, when it comes to IVE's latest comeback with Bang Bang, I did see that it brought about some, not necessarily negative discussion, but people were slightly worried about like IVE's identity and whether it's remaining consistent, which I wholeheartedly disagree with. I think it's very easy to tell which K-pop stans only listen to title tracks and which actually listen to all of the releases that K-pop groups come out with. And honestly, I could go on a whole tirade about how title tracks are really the only songs that matter when it comes to K-pop, but that's a whole other video. The point that I was trying to make is that Bang Bang has served its purpose as putting IVE, and specifically Wonyoung, on that high up pedestal once again. Anyway, that'll be it from me for now. See y'all next time. Bye bye.